Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. You ever catch someone lying to your face and smile like it didn't tear you apart inside? I was sitting in a government-issued SUV, wire in my ear, eyes locked on a hotel room across the street. Operation Hydra was in motion, a sting we'd been planning for weeks. But my thoughts weren't on the arms dealer inside that room. They were on the second phone I'd found under Rachel's seat cushion that morning. She'd left early, told me she had a teacher's conference at the school. But I knew the signs: shaky eye contact, rehearsed casual tone, a subtle pause when I kissed her goodbye. That's the kind of thing you notice when you've interrogated cartel bosses and domestic terrorists for 15 years. The screen lit up when I tapped it. The wallpaper wasn't of us, or even Tyler. It was of someone else entirely: Jason, my ex-partner, my former best friend, a man I hadn't spoken to since the Ambrose operation went sideways and nearly got me killed. Now I was watching the crosshairs on a foreign criminal while inside. My real war was boiling at home. Callahan, suspects on the move, came the voice in my ear. I didn't respond right away. My pulse was hammering, not from the target walking toward the room, but from the text I just opened on Rachel's burner. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Same room. Same room. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal with layers I hadn't even begun to count. I had a choice: blow the operation, or blow my life apart later. I chose silence. But inside, I asked myself, how do you hunt a traitor when the traitor wears your last name? Hi, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story, and I really appreciate that. I just have one small favor to ask. I'm on a mission to hit my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to be part of the journey. Your support means a lot, and trust me, even better stories are coming soon. Now, let's jump back into the story. Rachel's lies were clean. Too clean. A schoolteacher with a flawless routine, sweet-smelling candles, and receipts for every step. But I knew that kind of detail wasn't innocence, it was camouflage. I started where any good agent does: the patterns. Every Tuesday night, PDA meetings. Every Thursday, book club. And the worst one, Saturdays. Errands. Gone for hours. No real answers when she came back. I'd ask what she got, and she'd rattle off a few things. Always groceries. Always vague. I checked her browser history. Clean. Her phone? Locked tighter than our FBI cyber vault. But everyone makes mistakes. It was 2:14 a.m. when she fell asleep watching TV. Her phone was under the couch cushion. I cracked the code on the third try, our anniversary date. Figures. The first thing I saw wasn't even a message. It was a calendar event. Rendezvous, room 307. Repeats, weekly. I opened her texts. One thread was labeled work stuff. But inside, Jason, he suspects anything? Rachel, no. Mark doesn't look at me the same way anymore. He's distracted. I'm invisible. Jason, good. Let's keep it that way. My hands shook. I had been trained to catch lies, red faces, track fugitives through jungle terrain, but I hadn't seen my own home rotting from the inside. She kissed me goodnight that night, like nothing was broken. I kissed her back, but I wasn't her husband anymore. Not really. I was a ghost in my own home, and a hunter with a target painted in my own bed. I powered off her phone, slid it back, sat in the dark. What else have I missed? And what will I do when I know everything? The slip-up came 3 days later, small, stupid, and fatal. Rachel was in a rush that morning. Purse on her arm, coffee in hand, keys in her mouth, heading out the door late for school. I watched her go through the mirror by the hallway. She was humming. I waited for the click of the door, then turned. There it was. The second phone, left on the edge of the kitchen counter like it belonged there. I stared at it. It was black, sleek, barely used. I'd seen it once, the burner she kept in her glove box. I'd taken pictures, made notes, but never touched it. This time, I picked it up. No passcode. Like she trusted me not to snoop. Or maybe she thought I'd never dare. What I found made my skin crawl. Photos. Messages. Bank transfers. Jason's face. Her body. The two of them in a hotel bathroom, grinning. A video. I tapped play. Say hi to your loving husband. Jason laughed on screen. Rachel giggled, wrapped in a towel. Don't worry, baby. He's too busy saving the country to notice anything. I paused the video. My own living room reflected in the screen. Suddenly, it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a humiliation. She used my loyalty like a cover. My job, my identity, was their hiding place. I pocketed the phone. Didn't speak a word when she got home. Just smiled and asked if she wanted Thai for dinner. Let her play normal. Let her think she was safe. Because now, I wasn't investigating a crime. I was preparing a sentence. One she'd never see coming. The phone burned in my pocket the whole day. At 6:42 p.m., Rachel texted, grabbing groceries. Be home soon. 10 minutes later, I was parked outside the Parkdale Inn, engine off, binoculars in hand. Room 307. I had to see it with my own eyes, not a photo, not a message. The truth had to slap me across the face. At 7:03, Jason pulled up. Black Audi. He still drove like he had something to prove. He grabbed a bag from the trunk, wine, from the looks of it, and walked inside. At 7:07, Rachel arrived. She didn't knock. She had a key. They kissed in the hallway like newlyweds. She laughed. He grabbed her waist like it was routine, like she belonged there. I watched them close the door, and my vision tunneled. I could barely feel my fingers on the steering wheel. Rage wasn't even the right word. It was betrayal soaked in gasoline. But I didn't move. I didn't storm in. Because I was no longer the betrayed husband. I was a tactician now. In that room, that was a crime scene in the making. I took pictures, license plates, timestamps. I noted her exact movements. The red heels. The blouse she told me she wore for parent-teacher night. I called Tyler. Dad, you busy? No. Homework. You still have that drone I got you for your birthday? Yeah. Good. Charge it. I need your help with something tomorrow. He paused. What kind of help? I stared at the room. The shadows moving behind the blinds. The kind where we don't tell your mom. Jason Weston was once my closest ally in the field. We kicked down doors, cracked high-level intel together. I trusted him with my life. That trust nearly got me killed in Caracas. We were chasing a cartel accountant. Jason was supposed to cover the back exit. I moved in solo, thinking I had backup. The guy had a blade and 3 inches on me. I made it out with 34 stitches and a permanent scar down my side. Jason never showed. His excuse? I got caught in traffic. I never believed him. But I buried it for the team, for the bureau. Now he was buried in my wife. It hit different. That morning, I pulled up his records on my work terminal. Nothing out of place, at least not on paper. But I found something strange. Over the past year, Jason had been rerouted off assignments. Repeatedly. Nothing major, just shuffled around. It was subtle, like someone was clearing a path. Or protecting him. Rachel. I dug into the logistics department where she handled contractor paperwork for the FBI's education outreach. She'd been approving vendors. Budget reallocations. Nothing massive, but when I traced the paper trail. Shell accounts. Sloppy ones. Tied to Jason. She wasn't just cheating. She was helping him move money. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles of the office I once prided myself in. It felt foreign now. Every inch of my life was under their fingerprints. My home. My son. My badge. But now I had something else. A reason. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice. And I would use every tool the FBI gave me to bury the traitors who wore my face in public and laughed behind my back. Tyler had always been observant, too much so for his own good. He never said much. Never asked questions he didn't already know the answers to. He just watched, quiet as a shadow. That night, we sat on the porch. A rare moment of peace. You're not sleeping, he said without looking at me. No, is it Mom? I didn't answer. He looked at me then. A sharp, but soft. I've seen the texts. I know. I froze. How? She left her iPad connected to her messages. I wasn't snooping. It just popped up. And you didn't tell me? I figured. You already knew. Or didn't want to. He was 14. But in that moment, he felt older than me. She's lying to both of us, he added, softer. I nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I saved everything, just in case. I stared at it. You serious? He shrugged. I didn't know what you'd do with it, but if you were gonna do something, I thought maybe you shouldn't do it alone. I took the flash drive like it was made of glass. It held screenshots, videos, timestamps, even a screen recording of a FaceTime call between Rachel and Jason. She was in our bed. The silence between us stretched. Finally, I said, this changes things. Tyler's voice didn't tremble. Good, because I don't want her getting away with it. I looked at my son, really looked at him. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about legacy. What kind of man would I be? What kind of father? If I let her turn our home into a lie. Now I had a partner. And together, we were going to build a case the world would never forget. The house was silent. Rachel had taken the car and disappeared into her usual Thursday night void. Book club, she said, like always. It was 7:48 p.m. I knew better now. I sat alone in my office with Tyler's flash drive plugged into my laptop. Folders, files, dates, and then one audio file labeled voice memo _307.m4. I clicked it. The recording was rough, low quality, background noise, but the voices were unmistakable. Rachel, he still doesn't know. I swear, he's so busy playing hero, he wouldn't notice if I walked out mid-dinner. Jason, you should have left him by now. Thought we were done playing house. Rachel laughs. I'm working on it. Just need a few more things in place. Jason, you mean his clearance? Silence. Rachel, don't be stupid. Jason, you're the one with access to all that internal crap. Budget flows, personnel. He's a gatekeeper. I'm just saying, if we ever needed to. Rachel, I said, don't be stupid. Then the recording cut off. My throat dried. It wasn't just infidelity. This was deeper, riskier, dangerous. They weren't just toying with me. They were toying with the Bureau, with national security. I stared at the monitor, the cursor blinking like a countdown clock. The woman I came home to every night, the mother of my son, was talking like a spy in my living room. And Jason, the coward who left me bleeding in South America, was now trying to bleed my life from the inside. I closed the file, copied it to my encrypted vault, and deleted the original. She didn't know I knew, and that was my advantage. From this moment on, everything she said, every step she took, was evidence. And I was no longer just Mark Callahan, FBI. I was her shadow. The next morning, Rachel made waffles. Like nothing had happened. Like we weren't standing on the edge of a cliff she carved with her own hands. She wore one of my old FBI shirts, the faded one with the shoulder patch, and hummed while she worked the batter. Tyler sat at the table, earbuds in, pretending not to notice. But his eyes flicked to me every few seconds. I poured coffee, sat down, let her put the plate in front of me. She smiled. You've barely slept. Everything okay at work? I met her gaze and gave her the same smile I'd use on a criminal mid-interrogation. Just another long night. You know how it is. She kissed my cheek. You're always pushing too hard. Funny, I thought. So are you. I watched her walk out, grab her tote, and leave with that calm, perfect teacher energy. I waited until I heard the garage door close before I spoke. She's way too calm, Tyler said, sliding off his headphones. She doesn't suspect a thing. Feels weird pretending, he said. I looked at my son, this kid who used to build Lego sets in the living room. And now he was decoding text metadata for a revenge mission. You sure about this, Tyler? He didn't hesitate. She chose him. She hurt you. She lied to me. We're not a family to her. We're just backup. The words stung, mostly because they were true. I stood up, finished my coffee, and looked at the calendar. It was Friday. That meant Rachel would be grading papers late tonight. Good. I needed time. Because tonight, I'd be setting up the dead drop trap. And after that, I'd start tracking Jason's financials with the precision of a surgical blade. The mask was staying on for now. But inside, I was building fire. The server room at the FBI wasn't made for vengeance, but I'd found ways to make it work. My badge gave me access to monitoring tools most people never touched. Deep layers, back-end crawlers, traffic sniffers. I logged into the forensic analysis server under a sub-admin alias I'd created 3 years ago. It was clean, untraceable, ghost level. In less than 20 minutes, I had Jason's entire government activity footprint mapped. 3 anomalies popped up right away. A ghost vendor ID tied to an internal consulting contract. A recurring offshore ping to a known laundering hotspot in the Caymans. And the worst, encrypted transfers routed through an alias email, traced back to a shell account in Rachel's name. They were laundering money. And she wasn't just a participant. She was the paper trail cleaner. Son of a bitch, I whispered. They were using FBI systems, my systems, to cover their operations. Probably thought no one would ever look. I printed the logs, signed nothing, stored the physical copies in a safe deposit box under Tyler's name, just in case things went nuclear. That night, I set the dead drop. A small manila envelope, left in a parking garage Jason used after hours. Inside, a fabricated, leak notice appearing to come from an anonymous whistleblower. It was bait. If Jason took it, opened it, followed the rabbit trail I laid out inside, I'd know he was watching his back. Because guilty men always are. Back home, I watched Rachel sleep. Peaceful. Dreaming. And I whispered under my breath, "Sleep well, Rachel." Because soon, the walls would start closing in. And neither of them would know the spider was already in the web. Saturday morning. Pancakes. Sunlight. A fresh slice served with maple syrup. Rachel leaned on the counter, scrolling her phone while Tyler and I sat at the table. "I've got to run to the store," she said casually, not looking up. "We're low on paper towels and that almond creamer you like." "No rush," I said, sipping coffee. She kissed my cheek and left, same routine, same scent. Everything calculated. The moment the door closed, Tyler opened his laptop. "You tracking her phone?" I nodded. "Already pinged her location twice this week. Same spot. Hotel again." "Yeah, but today's different." "How?" "I'm going to call her bluff." I waited 30 minutes, then called her. She picked up fast. "Hey babe, what's up?" "Need you to grab milk too," I said. Tyler used the last of it. "Already in the checkout line," she said. "Be home in 10. I didn't say a word, because I was staring at her phone location on my screen. 3.6 miles away. Parkdale Inn. Room 307. She hung up without a flinch. No guilt in her voice. Not even hesitation. I turned to Tyler. "That's our first recorded lie. Live." He swallowed hard. That felt weird. It should. I copied the call log, saved the coordinates, and added a note. Lie 001, shopping cover story. "Dad, what are we doing with all this?" I paused. "We're building a case. Like we would with any criminal." He nodded, slowly, the weight settling in his chest. He wasn't just helping me spy anymore. He was helping me prepare for war. And soon, Rachel would have no idea how deep the hole she dug really was. The line between the badge and the man had never felt so thin. I stood in the FBI evidence locker, watching surveillance footage from a cartel case. My face stared back from the screen, calm, in control, professional. But I didn't recognize the man anymore. Because at home, I was surveilling my own wife. I wasn't just collecting data. I was profiling her. Not as a woman I loved, but as a person of interest. That night, I reviewed the collected files. I'd cataloged everything. 17 false alibis, 6 unreported meetings with Jason, 3 flagged financial transfers, 1 compromised internal login tied to her bureau access. Tyler sat nearby, silent. He hadn't said much since the phone call lie. I couldn't blame him. There's no clean way to watch your own mother become a suspect. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't look up. "When you arrest people, do they ever say sorry?" I thought about that. Sometimes. But usually they only say it when they're caught. He nodded. I went back to my files. Her browser history showed deep searches on legal separation, asset protection, and, worst of all, FBI pension after divorce. She was planning her exit. She wanted to gut me on the way out. "Dad," Tyler said, eyes locked on the monitor. "You can't let her win." "I'm not." "Then what happens next?" I leaned forward, opened a secure server, and began uploading data. We escalate. I sent the first anonymous tip, a subtle one, to the Bureau's internal security team. Nothing that pointed at Rachel directly. just enough to put Jason on their radar. Because if you want two snakes to turn on each other, you just need to light a little fire under the right one first. Sunday dinner used to mean something. Now, it felt like a performance. Rachel lit candles, poured wine, even made Tyler's favorite, garlic mashed potatoes. She smiled like a sitcom wife, not a woman having an affair with my ex-partner. "You've been quiet lately," she said between bites. "Everything good at work?" "Busy," I replied. "Running surveillance, mostly." She tilted her head. "Anyone interesting?" "Couple. Think they're clever. But we always catch the clever ones eventually." Her fork paused midair. Just a flicker of tension. Then she laughed. "Well, good luck with that." Tyler watched the exchange with a dead stare. He wasn't eating much. After dinner, Rachel excused herself for a bath. Said she needed to soak away the week. The moment she went upstairs, Tyler turned to me. "She's nervous." "She should be." I grabbed a thumb-sized bug, disguised as a phone charger, and slipped it behind a living room outlet. The mic range was 10 meters. Clean audio. "Do you think she's catching on?" Tyler asked. "No, not yet." He hesitated. "What happens if she does?" I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out a second bug and handed it to him. "Her purse," I said quietly. "When she's asleep." He looked at it, swallowed hard, nodded. We weren't father and son anymore. We were agents. The next morning, Rachel left early, towel-dried hair, coffee in hand, smile painted on like everything was perfect. Tyler met me at the door. "It's in her purse," he whispered. "Good." We had audio, we had timestamps, we had lies logged like clockwork. And soon, we'd have her voice admitting everything. Because criminals always talk when they think no one's listening. And Rachel? She was about to confess without even realizing it. It was Monday night when the plan shifted from surveillance to entrapment. Rachel had a habit. She took long showers before bed, left her phone on the nightstand, volume off. That night, she came home later than usual, mumbled something about a staff meeting running over, and headed straight for the bathroom. The moment the water turned on, I moved. Her phone was there, screen up, charging. I tapped it awake. No password. She must have disabled the lock after I hadn't caught her all this time. Confidence had made her lazy. I set my phone beside hers and opened the voice memo app. Hit record. Then I placed it under a folded sweatshirt in our walk-in closet, a spot with perfect acoustics. I didn't have long. 5 minutes later, she returned. Hair wet, wearing a towel and a smirk. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just replying to emails," I lied, holding up my phone like I'd been working. She slipped into bed. I joined her, heart pounding. She didn't know she was being recorded. The next morning, I played it back alone in my car. What I heard chilled me. Rachel, whispering on a phone call, "Yeah, I can move it. His files are on the upstairs drive. But I need more time. If I get caught, Jason, muffled, you won't. He doesn't suspect a thing. Just get me that budget report by Thursday. Rachel, he's been distant lately. Like. Sharper. You think he knows? Jason, doesn't matter. He won't act. He's FBI. Too many rules." She laughed. "Rachel, yeah, too many rules." I paused the recording, stared at the dashboard. The world outside moved in slow motion. She was accessing my classified files, passing them, and mocking me for being bound by a moral code. But here's what she didn't know. I wasn't following rules anymore. I was rewriting them. By Wednesday, the case file I was building against Rachel and Jason had grown beyond simple betrayal. I was documenting treason. That afternoon, I took a personal hour and drove to a secure storage unit I'd rented under a fake name, something I'd used once years ago while undercover. Inside, printouts, flash drives, screenshots. All labeled, all time-stamped. Tyler had his own copy, hidden in a fireproof lockbox I gave him, and told him never to open unless something happened to me. He didn't ask questions, just nodded. Back at home, I added the latest, Rachel's secret access logs. 3 times, she'd used my office computer. 2 of them matched nights she claimed to be at school events. Both times, sensitive budget files had been downloaded to an external device. I traced those files to a private Dropbox folder, linked to a dummy email created by Jason Weston. I took screenshots. added them to the folder labeled Joint Collusion, Rachel/Jason. The next move was riskier. I printed just 2 pages, redacted enough to be bait, but loaded with just enough detail to scare. Then, that night, I placed the envelope in Jason's gym locker. Inside was a single line typed across the top. Your passwords are garbage. Your lies even worse. The fall is coming. It wasn't about fear. It was about pressure. If Jason felt the walls closing in, he'd start getting sloppy. And Rachel? She'd be the one standing too close when his mask fell off. I wanted to watch them turn on each other. I wanted them paranoid. Because when liars feel the heat, they stop trusting their partner in crime. And that's when the cracks start to show. I didn't expect the confession to come that soon. But betrayal has a funny way of snowballing. That Thursday night, I was downstairs reviewing surveillance footage when I heard Rachel's voice upstairs. Loud. Frantic. I muted everything and listened. She was on the phone, pacing the bedroom. Rachel, I don't know, Jason. Someone's watching us. Mark's acting different. He's not stupid. Silence. I crept halfway up the stairs, far enough to hear without being seen. Rachel, he keeps asking where I'm going. He stares at me like he's reading my thoughts. What if he's already recorded something? Pause. Rachel, no, I didn't say anything yet. But we have to stop. You said this would be clean. She sounded desperate. Edges of her voice fraying. Rachel, and Tyler, he's cold. He barely looks at me anymore. I think he knows. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Every word was confirmation. But more than that, I heard fear. Rachel, you promised me. You said he wouldn't find out. That we'd be out before anything got traced. Jason's voice was faint but sharp. I couldn't hear all of it. Then she said something that hit like a hammer. Rachel, I should have just stayed with Mark. At least he wouldn't have destroyed me like this. She hung up. I walked back down the stairs. Slow. Controlled. Back to my desk. I opened my notes. Typed the words. Subject starting to crack. Psychological pressure effective. Suspects will fracture soon. This wasn't personal anymore. It hadn't been for a while. It was professional. Strategic. And soon, it would be final. Because now Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was starting to regret it. And regret is the first sign of a losing side. It was time to prepare for the worst. After hearing Rachel's phone call, I knew the pressure was working. But pressure creates panic. And panic makes people dangerous. I needed a backup plan, not just for revenge, but for survival. That night, while Rachel was asleep, I went into the garage, opened the false floor panel beneath the workbench, and pulled out an old military-grade hard case. Inside were encrypted drives, burner phones, and a flash drive labeled in red Sharpie, burn folder. It wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about Jason, the bureau, Tyler's safety. Everything was on the line. I spent hours compiling copies of everything. All surveillance audio, every message and chat log, evidence of classified access violations, screenshots of Rachel's data pulls. I encrypted the drive with a triple authentication lock, stored it in a waterproof case, and put it in Tyler's school locker the next morning. Only he and I knew the code. When I handed him the sealed envelope, I saw the tension in his eyes. What if she finds it? He asked. She won't, I said. And if she does, we won't be here. He didn't ask where here meant. He just nodded. Back at the office, I slid an unsigned folder across Linda Morales' desk. My most trusted colleague. Sharp. Clean. No ties to Jason or Rachel. If something happens to me, I said, open this. She blinked. Mark, what the hell are you into? I held her gaze. Just promise me. She nodded slowly. Okay. That night, I sat in the driveway, engine off, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the glow of our kitchen window. Rachel was in there, still pretending. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I was ready for war. And war requires backup. A few years back, I saved a senator's daughter from a kidnapping gone sideways in Virginia Beach. Tonight, I cashed in that favor. I arranged a bureau-hosted networking dinner, formal, catered, and tightly guest-listed. A few FBI faces, a few political ones. Nothing big. But I made sure 2 people got an invitation, Jason Weston and my wife. Why are we even invited to this thing? Rachel asked Friday afternoon, brushing her hair in the mirror. You hate these types of events. Yeah, I replied. But it's good PR. Everyone's expected to bring their spouses. She didn't ask anything else. Just kept applying her lipstick. At 7:42 p.m., we walked into the Federal Building ballroom like the perfect couple. Her in a dark emerald dress. Me in my tailored black suit. Jason was already there, drinking scotch, laughing too loud. I walked up like nothing was wrong. Jason, I said, clapping his shoulder. Glad you made it. He looked like he'd swallowed glass. Mark, you, clean up well. I raised my glass. So do you. Rachel's smile was glued on like a mask. Her grip on my arm tightened. I felt the tremor. The dinner was staged perfectly. I'd already asked the event's AV guy to set up a looping background montage of FBI field missions. A safe, sanitized highlight reel. But at exactly 8:17 p.m., the visuals changed. 10 seconds. No sound. Just one slide. A screenshot of Jason's dummy bank account, tied to Rachel's work terminal. It flashed and disappeared in an instant. Just long enough for Jason to see it. Just long enough for Rachel to choke on her wine. Something wrong? I asked, my voice calm. Jason looked pale. What was that? Just one of our archived field assets, I replied. You know, we see everything eventually. And then I smiled. Because the seeds of doubt were now fully planted. They were going to implode, and I wouldn't have to lift a single finger. Saturday morning. Rachel stood at the vanity mirror, brushing her hair like always. But the movements were stiff, repetitive, mechanical. I leaned against the bathroom doorway, arms crossed. Rough night? She froze, just for a second, then kept brushing. I didn't sleep well. Too much wine. She met my eyes in the mirror. Something like that. I stepped forward, slow, casual. You and Jason seemed tense. She didn't blink. He's been off lately. You noticed that? I gave a dry chuckle. Yeah, everyone's got something to hide, right? That landed. I saw it in her shoulders. She looked away, then quickly changed the subject. We should plan a weekend trip. Maybe take Tyler somewhere. Clear our heads. Our heads? I asked. She paused. I just mean reconnect. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. Rachel, what exactly do you think we've been doing all this time? She flinched, mask slipping. I stared at her through the mirror. You know what the Bureau teaches us about microexpressions? She swallowed, said nothing. I leaned in, voice cold. They say guilt hides in the eyes, but real fear? It shows in the jaw, tightening, clenching. Her jaw was locked. Tell me, I whispered, what are you afraid of? She turned slowly. But before she could answer, Tyler knocked on the door. Dad, I need help with my project. Coming, I said, backing away. I left Rachel standing in front of the mirror, brush still in hand, trembling. The image of her reflection stuck with me the rest of the day. She wasn't just cracking. She was splintering. And when a liar begins to doubt her partner and her plan, that's when the entire con collapses from the inside. Linda Morales wasn't the type to poke her nose into someone else's business. That's what made her warning hit harder. It was Monday afternoon. Quiet office. She tapped on my door, then stepped in without waiting. Got a minute? I looked up from my screen. For you? Always. She shut the door behind her. No small talk. No smile. You dropped something off for me last week. Said to only open it if something happened to you. I nodded slowly. She leaned forward. Mark, what the hell's going on? I didn't answer right away. She was sharp. I couldn't deflect. But I couldn't expose the full story either. I'm handling something off books. Personal. She raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Yes. She crossed her arms. You don't get to wear that badge and go rogue. If this affects national security, it's not foreign. It's not terrorism. It's closer. How close? I met her eyes. My wife and my ex-partner. The words hung in the air like smoke. Linda exhaled. Jesus. I nodded. Yeah. Are you going to bring this to internal affairs? Not yet. I'm gathering more. I want it airtight. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Then let me help. I blinked. You serious? You do it for me, she said. I swallowed. You have no idea what you're stepping into. Her voice dropped. If they're accessing classified systems through your clearance, they've already crossed a line. And if you wait too long, That line will swallow you too. I looked down. My hand was clenched around my pin, knuckles white. She was right. You have 72 hours, she said, turning toward the door. Then I'm going to internal myself. I didn't stop her. I just whispered, good. Because in 72 hours, I'd be ready. That night, I placed the second envelope in Jason's car. No signature, just another quiet threat. This one was heavier, redacted screenshots, mock subpoenas, and a flash drive containing a decoy bank statement showing a trace alert on his Cayman accounts. It wasn't real, but it looked real enough to ignite panic. I watched from a distance as he found it. He scanned the contents, paced in the parking lot, then made 3 phone calls in 5 minutes. I had every word captured through directional mic. Jason, who's watching us? You said it was clear. Rachel, on speaker, I don't know. Maybe someone inside? He's too clean. Mark doesn't make mistakes like this. Jason, well, if this goes public, if the Bureau sees this, we're done. I'll lose my pension. You'll lose everything. Rachel, so what do we do? Jason, we cut and run. Drop it all. Now. Exactly what I wanted. Back home, I opened the locked drawer in my study and pulled out the divorce papers. Already signed by me. Waiting for one more signature. Tyler saw them on the desk. She gonna sign those? When the time's right. What if she doesn't? I looked him dead in the eye. Then I won't need her signature. He didn't flinch. What happens after? We start over. He looked down. Good. I folded the papers, sealed them in an envelope, and placed them in the safe. Jason and Rachel were cracking. The moment they tried to run, the second they acted on fear, I'd catch them with both hands. Because now, this wasn't about saving my marriage. It was about ending it on my terms. It was Wednesday morning when it happened. Rachel stood in the kitchen, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She didn't meet my eyes when I walked in. I need to talk to you, she said, voice hollow. I nodded. Okay. She set the mug down. Her hands were shaking. I've been unhappy, Mark. For a long time. I stayed silent. I think it's time we separate. Maybe not permanently, but I need space. Still, I said nothing. Her voice cracked. You don't even seem surprised. I looked at her for a long moment. I'm not. She blinked. You're not. I shook my head. Rachel, I've known. For months. She swallowed. You what? I know about Jason. I know about the accounts. The burner phone. The Dropbox folder. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked like she'd been shot. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't, I said quietly. The silence was louder than any argument. I just wanted to be happy, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I stepped forward. You didn't just hurt someone. You built your happiness on lies. On betrayal. On our son's back. She dropped her gaze. I'm sorry. No, you're not, I said. You're sorry I found out. She didn't answer. I reached into the drawer, pulled out the envelope, and laid the divorce papers on the table. I already signed. She stared at them like they were a loaded weapon. I want everything, she said suddenly. The house. My share of your pension. I want a clean break. I smiled. You'll get what's coming. She looked confused. But she wouldn't be for long. Because the moment she tried to claim what wasn't hers, every secret she ever hid would come into the light. It didn't take much to push Jason over the edge. One anonymous tip. A single document slipped into the right hands at Internal Affairs. The fallout was instant. By Thursday afternoon, Jason was pulled from active duty. The official reason was administrative review, but anyone in the building could smell the blood in the water. I watched him pack up his desk from down the hall. He didn't see me. He looked smaller than I remembered, not the cocky field agent who used to laugh too loud or show off at briefings. Just a man unraveling at the seams. I passed by Linda, who nodded once. She'd done her part. Quiet. Clean. Back home, Rachel wasn't talking. She walked like her feet were made of glass, every movement careful, uncertain. She was afraid of what I knew, of what I hadn't shown her yet. She'd called Jason 3 times. I knew because I intercepted the calls. Jason panicked. He's coming for us. You realize that, right? Rachel, he wouldn't go nuclear. He is Tyler. He's not that kind of man. Jason, he's exactly that kind of man. You just never saw it. She didn't reply. Because Jason was right. At work, I submitted my own concerned inquiry to Human Resources, a pattern of strange financial activity connected to Jason. It looked harmless, but it made sure the Bureau kept digging. And when they did, they'd find just enough to keep Jason locked down, questioning everything. Rachel was watching him fall. And what she didn't realize, she was next. Saturday morning. Rain tapped against the windows like a slow, steady countdown. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, jaw clenched in focus. He wasn't a kid anymore. Not in this house. Not in this storm. I found something, he said, without looking up. I walked over, leaned in. It was an iCloud backup, hidden in an app folder Jason must have used once and forgot. Rachel had uploaded a photo, or rather, Tyler had captured it through synced metadata, a screen grab from a video call. Rachel, wrapped in our sheets. Jason, shirtless, laughing. But that wasn't the point. The point was what was behind Rachel, my locked file cabinet. Open. In the frame, you could see a hard drive on the desk. They were stealing data during your case review, Tyler whispered. And she didn't even close the cabinet. I stared at it, not with rage, but clarity. They're not just cheaters, I said. They're thieves. Tyler turned his screen. There's more. I checked timestamps. That call was made during your debrief last quarter. She knew you wouldn't be home. I exhaled slowly. You're sure it's clear? Metadata doesn't lie. Neither do pixels. I put a hand on his shoulder. Good work. He looked up. What do we do now? We go public. He swallowed. You ready? No, I said. But they are. Sunday night. I sent the files to a former journalist contact. The kind who owed me one from a cold case I helped him crack. No names. No direct claims. Just a drive of anonymous evidence showing an affair between two bureau-connected individuals, misuse of classified files, and suspicious financial transfers between internal systems and offshore accounts. I knew he wouldn't sit on it. By Monday morning, the fire had started. Senior FBI field agent under review for potential internal breach. Anonymous evidence suggests possible collusion between agents and financial fraud. Sources indicate leaked footage points to internal conflict. And then came the real bomb. The footage Tyler pulled, the one with Rachel in our bedroom and Jason laughing, ended up on a private whistleblower forum. It spread fast. At home, Rachel's phone exploded with calls. Her sister, her job, even her mother. She stormed into my office, pale and shaking. What did you do? I looked up from my laptop, calm. I protected the Bureau. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? You humiliated me. No, I said. You did that to yourself. Her voice cracked. This was between us. This was personal. No, Rachel. It became federal when you accessed my files and fed them to a disgraced agent. She slapped a hand on the desk. I will ruin you. I stood. Slowly. Quietly. You already tried. Her lip trembled. For the first time, I saw not rage, but shame. You think you've won, she whispered. No, I said, eyes cold. I'm just getting started. Because Jason was crumbling. Rachel was collapsing. And my next move was public execution. Tyler sat across from me in the living room, laptop open, rain tapping hard against the windows. I dug deeper, he said, voice low. He clicked a folder open, Rachel's synced iPad files. Hidden documents, encrypted emails. Not just messages to Jason, but payments. Regular transfers from Rachel to a consulting firm tied to offshore shell companies. The same firms Jason used to move dirty money. She's not just covering for him, Tyler said. She's a partner. I stared at the screen, the numbers blurring. Rachel wasn't some manipulated mistress. She was in business with Jason. They were partners. Co-conspirators. Financially tied. Risk-sharing. It wasn't about love. It never was. It was about greed. Control. Survival. Every time she smiled at me, I muttered. Every, I love you. She was playing a part. Tyler didn't speak. He didn't need to. The betrayal went deeper than the bed sheets. It had poisoned the very foundation of my home, my family. I closed the laptop. Stood up. This changes the plan. Tyler looked up, cautious. How? No mercy. He nodded once. No hesitation. I picked up the burner phone I kept hidden and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. A favor from a man I once saved in Mexico, a digital ghost who could erase or expose a life in minutes. When he answered, I spoke only one word. Ready. Because Rachel and Jason thought they were fighting a man cornered by love. What they didn't know. They just cornered a ghost with nothing left to lose. Tuesday night. Rachel walked through the front door after another late meeting. Her makeup was smudged, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, not from work, but from running scared. She barely noticed me sitting at the kitchen table. Mark, I can't do this tonight. I'm exhausted. I didn't say a word, just slid a small black recorder across the table. She froze. What's that? She asked, voice thin. Press play. She hesitated, then hit the button. Jason's voice crackled through the speaker. Once we get the last batch of files, we'll be free. Rachel's cleaning the access points like we planned. He's too busy playing hero to notice. Her face went white. I leaned in, voice calm. You're not just an unfaithful wife, Rachel. You're an accessory to espionage. She shook her head, backing away. You don't understand. No. You don't understand. I cut her off. You're looking at a minimum of 15 years if I hand this over. Tears filled her eyes. Mark, please. I was scared. Jason, he said if I didn't help, you had choices. You made yours. She fell into the nearest chair, head in her hands. I didn't mean for it to get this far, but it did. She looked up, pleading. There's still time. We can fix this. I'll do whatever you want. I stared at her, the woman I once trusted with my life. No, I said. You'll do exactly what I tell you. Or what? Or you'll watch everything burn. Because now, I owned her. Not out of love. Out of justice. Out of survival. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I made the call. I sent the final packet to Internal Affairs through Linda's back channel, the true files this time. Hard evidence of Jason's money laundering, the offshore accounts, the collusion with Rachel. Within hours, Jason Weston was arrested. Not on the nightly news. Not with handcuffs flashing and crowds watching. Quiet. Silent. Internal Affairs style. He was walked out of his condo in plain clothes. No spectacle. No attention. But I knew better. The real show was about to begin. Rachel didn't know yet. Jason's phone was seized, his accounts frozen, his lawyer already scrambling. And when Rachel found out, she'd realize how completely, how utterly alone she truly was. Tyler found me outside that evening, leaning against the back fence, watching the sun dip behind the trees. Did they get him? He asked. They got him. He nodded once, stuffing his hands in his pockets. What about Mom? He asked after a moment. I didn't answer right away, because part of me still mourned her. Not the woman she became, but the woman I thought she was. She'll have a choice, I said finally. Stand with him and fall, or stand alone and shatter. Tyler looked down. And us. I smiled, cold and sharp. We're bulletproof now. Because Jason's cage was locked. Rachel's world was crumbling. And my revenge had only just begun echoing through the walls they'd once used to trap me. It happened faster than even I expected. By Thursday morning, Rachel's email account was locked. Her work phone was disconnected. She arrived at the bureau building, badge clipped to her purse, only to be stopped at the security gate. Ma'am, the guard said, avoiding her eyes. You've been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Rachel laughed, sharp and desperate. There must be a mistake. But there wasn't. She turned to leave, trying to hold her head high, but her phone kept vibrating. Her sister, her mother, mutual friends. The headlines were everywhere now. FBI internal leak scandal deepens, female analyst named in ongoing investigation exclusive. Financial ties between two agents and offshore laundering rings. Her face wasn't on the news yet, but the whispers had already started. When she pulled into the driveway that evening, she sat in the car for almost 20 minutes, head resting on the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. I watched from the kitchen window, sipping coffee. She finally stumbled into the house, dropping her bag like it weighed 100 pounds. I stayed silent. She crumpled into a chair, hands covering her face. They froze my accounts, she whispered, voice cracking. All of them. I said nothing. They're investigating me. My emails. My clearances. Still, I said nothing. She looked up, raw anger and fear in her eyes. This is you. You did this. I set my coffee cup down. No, Rachel, you did this. The woman who once planned my downfall sat there, broken, in the house she was about to lose. And the beautiful part? I hadn't even raised my voice. It was supposed to be another bureau celebration, commendations for a recent sting, a few plaques handed out, drinks and toasts. I made sure to attend, not because I wanted an award, because I wanted witnesses. At exactly 8:35 p.m., as the assistant director raised a glass for the honorees, the screens around the ballroom flickered. Technical glitch, they thought. But then a video started playing. Security footage, timestamped, watermarked, showing Rachel and Jason meeting in the Parkdale Inn lobby, hugging, exchanging flash drives. The footage flipped to spreadsheets, dummy accounts, wire transfers, suspicious vendors. It lasted only 15 seconds. But it was enough. Murmurs filled the room. Heads turned. Faces shifted. Eyes locked on me, then on the empty seat reserved for Jason. On the absence of Rachel. I stayed seated, calm, unbothered. The assistant director cleared his throat, flustered. Sorry, folks, a technical error. Let's move on. But the damage was done. By the next morning, half the bureau would know the truth. Rachel and Jason weren't just dirty. They were stupid enough to leave fingerprints. As I rose to leave, I caught Linda's eye across the room. She gave me the barest nod. Respect, silent and sharp. Outside, the night air hit my face. Clean, cold, free. I exhaled. The dinner hadn't been for applause. It had been for closure. Because justice doesn't always come with sirens and handcuffs. Sometimes, it comes in the quiet shame of being unmasked by the very people you betrayed. Sunday, custody mediation day. Rachel arrived late, looking hollow, makeup barely covering the stress carved into her face. Her lawyer whispered furiously in her ear as we sat across the long oak conference table. I had no lawyer. I didn't need one. The mediator cleared her throat. Miss Callahan, Mr. Callahan, we're here to discuss the primary custody arrangement for your son, Tyler. Rachel sat up straighter, forcing composure. I believe Tyler should remain in the family home. Stability is important. I didn't speak. Tyler did. He stood up, voice steady, filling the room. I don't want to live with her, he said clearly. I want to stay with my dad. Rachel's mouth fell open. Tyler, no, he said firmly. You lied to us. You broke everything. I can't trust you. Tears welled up in her eyes. You're just a kid, she whispered. You don't understand. He shook his head. I understand enough. The mediator nodded, scribbling notes. Rachel looked at me then, not with anger this time, but with despair, as if she finally understood how far she'd fallen, how utterly she had lost. Custody was awarded to me within 20 minutes. Rachel slumped in her chair, defeated. As we left the building, Tyler looked up at me. She's not coming back from this, is she? I put an arm around his shoulders. She made her choice, kid. And now we're making ours. Because family isn't built on blood. It's built on truth. And Tyler? He was my truth now. By Monday morning, Rachel's name was everywhere. It started small, whispers in local papers, anonymous blog posts. But it snowballed fast. The whistleblower video leaked to a national outlet. Clips of her with Jason. Snapshots of financial trails. Rumors of espionage charges. Every site. Every news app. Every corner of the internet. Rachel Callahan, FBI analyst turned traitor. She stayed inside for 2 days straight. Curtains drawn. Phone silenced. But the world didn't care about her silence. It cared about blood. The front lawn filled with camera crews by noon. Microphones. Shouted questions. Rachel, were you involved in financial fraud? Is it true you had an affair with a fellow agent? Have you been charged yet? Tyler and I watched from the upstairs window. He shook his head. They're like vultures. She made herself the carcass, I said. I wasn't gloating. There was no satisfaction in her collapse. Only inevitability. Rachel eventually cracked. I heard it. The sound of the front door slamming. Her screaming at reporters to leave. Her sobs trailing into the driveway. She was a woman undone. Not by me. By herself. I turned away from the window. There were still steps to take. This wasn't over yet. Not until every lie she built turned to ash. The courtroom was colder than I remembered. Rachel sat at the plaintiff's table, her hair pinned up tight, her clothes sharp and calculated. Her lawyer whispered strategy. Last-ditch plays. But it didn't matter. The evidence spoke louder than any plea could. Emails, financial trails, leaked footage, character witnesses. I watched her face crumble piece by piece as the judge read through the findings. Evidence of gross misconduct and endangerment of classified information. Sustained allegations of conspiracy to defraud government agencies. Rachel tried to interject once. Her lawyer gently pressed her arm down. When it was my turn to speak, I stood simply and said, "My son deserves a life without lies." That was it. No anger. No theatrics. Just the truth. Tyler sat behind me, silent, strong. The final verdict came fast. Full custody awarded to Mark Callahan. Immediate removal of maternal visitation rights pending investigation outcome. Rachel stared at the floor, breathing like each breath hurt. Outside, Tyler hugged me tighter than he had in months. "You kept your promise," he whispered. I nodded, feeling the weight of everything settle in my chest. "She made her choices," I said. "We made ours. And for the first time in a long time, we were free." Jason Weston looked smaller in a jumpsuit. Gone was the smirking agent who once slapped me on the back after missions. Gone was the man who thought he could take everything and walk away clean. Now he sat at the defense table, shackled, gray-faced, and alone. The courtroom was packed. Bureau reps, journalists, former colleagues. Every person he'd once lied to or laughed with now stared at him like he was diseased. The prosecutor was brutal. He laid out everything: money laundering through fake charities, unauthorized access to classified systems, conspiracy to commit fraud across federal lines. The screenshots Tyler found? The metadata he traced? Exhibit A. When they played the surveillance footage of Jason handing Rachel the flash drive, he dropped his head into his hands. Not even his lawyer could save him. Rachel wasn't at the trial. She'd been subpoenaed for the next phase. And she knew, just like Jason did, that cooperating was her only ticket to a softer fall. After 2 days, Jason's defense caved. He accepted a plea. 10 years minimum. No parole for 5. When they let him out, he didn't look at me. I didn't need him to. Because Jason Weston wasn't my enemy anymore. He was already defeated. By his own hand. 2 days after Jason's sentencing, a courier delivered a letter to my door. No return address. Just my name in rushed handwriting. I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Rachel's handwriting was burned into my memory, once graceful, now desperate. I sat at the kitchen table, Tyler upstairs doing homework, and unfolded the letter. "Mark, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did to you, or to Tyler, but for the woman I became. I let fear drive me. I let greed drown me. And when I realized how far I'd fallen, it was too late to climb back. I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. But please, please tell Tyler I loved him, even if I didn't deserve him. I'm leaving town after the inquiry. I won't fight the charges. I won't fight you anymore. Goodbye." There was no signature, no grand apology. Just the pathetic crumbling of a woman who destroyed herself and finally saw it. I folded the letter once, twice, and dropped it into the trash. Because the past? It didn't own me anymore. And Rachel Callahan? She was nothing but a closed file. It was a bright, cold Wednesday when I was summoned to internal affairs. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't guilty. But in the bureau, appearances mattered. And I knew my connection to Rachel, however unchosen, would put me under the microscope. The interview room was sterile. Steel chairs. One-way glass. A senior agent, Mendez, sat across from me, thick file open between us. He tapped a pen against the table. Mark Callahan. 15 years service. Flawless record, until now. I said nothing. Let him keep talking. "You didn't report suspicions about your wife's activities immediately. That's a breach of protocol." Still, I stayed silent. He leaned forward. "Why?" I met his eyes. Calm. "Because I needed evidence. Real evidence." "You think they would have opened an inquiry on a hunch?" Mendez hesitated. I pushed harder. "You needed the kind of proof no court could wiggle out of. You needed what I delivered." Silence. Then he sat back, flipping a page in the file. Lucky for you. The director agrees. A beat. No charges filed. No disciplinary action. I exhaled quietly. Relief didn't flood me, just a heavy, tired acceptance. Effective immediately, you're being reassigned to administrative duty, Mendez added. You can reapply for field status after a year. I nodded once. Is that all? I asked. For now. I stood, shook his hand, firm, professional, and left without looking back. The badge still hung at my waist. But the man wearing it? He wasn't the same. And maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Tyler sat on the back porch that evening, hood up, sketchbook in his lap. He didn't hear me approach. I watched him for a moment, the slow, careful way he moved the pencil across the page. Focused. Unshaken. He looked up and grinned when he saw me. You good? I asked. He nodded. Better now. I sat down beside him. For a long time, we just listened to the wind. You know, he said finally, I used to think heroes wore capes. I smiled. Nah, they usually wear scars. He laughed, a real one. The first I'd heard from him in months. I'm serious, he said. You didn't let her destroy you. Or me. I looked at him, my son. Stronger than I ever gave him credit for. You protected us too, I said. More than you know. He shrugged. I just didn't want to lose the only real parent I had left. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Not painful. Just heavy with truth. You didn't, I said. And you never will. I didn't say the last part out loud. But I knew he heard it anyway. Because family isn't defined by promises. It's built through battles. And Tyler Callahan? He was no longer a kid hiding in the background. He was a survivor. A shield. And he was mine. 3 weeks later, I got the letter. Jason Weston. Inmate 49,821. Federal Correctional Facility. It was short. Mark, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But please, don't let them forget I was once more than this. Don't let my son think I was only the monster they say I became. There was no apology. No acceptance. Just desperation. I stared at the page for a long time. Remembered the man Jason used to be, the one who dragged me out of sniper fire in Kabul. The one who cracked open a human trafficking ring in Baltimore without losing a single civilian. That man was gone. The Jason who remained deserved every year behind those concrete walls. I folded the letter. Burned it in the backyard fire pit. No response. No pity. No more memories. Because Jason's choices defined him. Not me. And not my son. The final hearing was public. Rachel shuffled into court wearing a plain gray suit. No makeup, her hair limp and unwashed. She pled guilty to obstruction of justice and conspiracy to defraud. Reduced charges. No prison, but probation, loss of all federal benefits, permanent blacklisting from any security work. She stood there, trembling, while the judge read the sentence. I sat in the gallery, arms folded. She didn't see me. Or maybe she didn't dare look. When it was over, she slipped out a side door, paparazzi screaming questions, cameras flashing. She didn't answer. Didn't fight. Didn't even cry. Because there was nothing left of the woman she used to be. Only a shadow. Only a memory. Outside, Tyler met me by the curb. Is it really over? He asked. I thought about it. All the lies. All the nights spent doubting. All the betrayal soaked into the walls of our home. Almost, I said. Because endings aren't sharp like gunshots. They're slow. Silent. The closing of doors you never planned to open again. And we were already walking toward a door that led to something better. The morning after Rachel's sentencing, I packed up my office. Not because the bureau forced me. Because I chose to leave. 15 years of files, awards, mission plaques packed into a single brown box. Linda Morales stood by the door, arms crossed. You sure about this? She asked. I nodded. It's time. Desk job's still open. I wasn't built for a desk. She smiled sadly. You were built to fight. I locked the last drawer, dropped the keys on the desk. Fighting broke too much, I said. Now it's time to build. Linda stepped forward. Hugged me tight. You saved a lot of people, Mark. Including yourself. When I walked out, it wasn't dramatic. No standing ovation. No applause. Just the soft hum of a life closing one chapter and walking boldly into another. I didn't need a badge anymore. I had something better. freedom, and a future. That night, I opened the old evidence box for the last time. Inside, flash drives, photographs, printouts, Rachel's burner phone, Jason's offshore account maps, proof of everything we'd survived. I stared at the items, feeling the weight of them settle in my chest one last time. Memories of late nights gathering intel. Tyler's tired eyes as he cataloged files. Rachel's voice whispering lies into a phone while I sat in the next room. All of it, here. Concrete. Heavy. I pulled a metal trash can into the backyard. One by one, I tossed the items inside. Lit a match. Watch it all burn. The fire snapped and roared, eating through years of betrayal in minutes. Tyler joined me, silent, standing by my side. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. When the flames died down, I felt lighter than I had in years. Because sometimes justice isn't delivered in courtrooms. Sometimes it's served under the stars, beside your son, watching your past turn to ash. 2 weeks later, Tyler and I moved into a small second-story apartment across town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. A crooked balcony with a view of the city skyline. But it was ours. The first night, we ate pizza off paper plates on the living room floor. Boxes stacked around us. Think we'll ever have a big house again? Tyler asked between bites. I leaned back, arms folded behind my head. Maybe, I said. But for now, this is enough. He smiled. Feels more like home already. We hung curtains together. Assembled cheap IKEA furniture. Argued over where to put the TV. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't perfect. It was real. No lies here. No secrets. Just a man and his son, rebuilding from the rubble. And for the first time in a long time. It felt like life wasn't something we were surviving. It was something we were creating. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Tyler was at school. I was organizing the kitchen when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Rachel standing there. Thinner. Paler. Eyes hollow like cracked glass. She clutched a manila envelope to her chest. I just want 5 minutes, she said, voice trembling. I didn't step aside. Please, she whispered. I hesitated. Then I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. She swallowed hard. I'm leaving town. Good, I said flatly. She flinched. I just wanted to give Tyler this. She held out the envelope. I didn't take it. You can mail it, I said. Mark, she started. No, she blinked fast, fighting tears. I loved him. I still do. I shook my head slowly. You loved yourself more. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I stepped back, hand on the doorknob. Goodbye, Rachel. Before she could say another word, I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it, breathing slow. Tyler deserved better. And so did I. There was no place for ghosts in our new life. Only sunlight. Only forward. Tyler came home from school just after 5. He tossed his backpack by the couch, pulled off his shoes, and walked into the kitchen where I was stirring pasta. He noticed the sealed manila envelope on the counter. What's that? Your mother dropped it off, I said. Didn't open it. He stared at it for a long second. Then, can I? I hesitated, then nodded. Your choice. He tore the seal, slid out the papers. Read in silence. A folded letter. A small photo. 1 single-page drawing, something he'd made as a kid. Crayon. Sloppy hearts. A stick figure family. His face didn't break. No tears. No rage. Just quiet. She kept this, he said, holding the drawing. After everything, she kept it. He folded the letter back up carefully, placed it back inside, then pushed it away. Maybe she really did love us once, he said. Maybe, I said softly. He stood up, walked over, hugged me. But it doesn't change anything. No, I agreed. It doesn't. We didn't burn the envelope. We didn't keep it either. Tyler tucked it into the back of his closet, not out of hate, but out of memory. Because the past didn't need to be erased. It just needed to stay in its place. 2 months later, the news broke. Jason Weston's final federal hearing. Sentence upheld. 10 years. No parole for 5. But this time, the case went public. Fully. His name. His crimes. The betrayal. I watched the live stream from our apartment. Tyler beside me, quiet. The prosecutor's closing words echoed through the room. This isn't just about national security. It's about trust. Trust broken. trust destroyed. And that destruction always has a price. The judge spoke next. Flat, unwavering. This court finds no reason to reduce sentence. Mr. Weston, you made your bed in shadows. You'll serve your time in full. Jason didn't react, didn't blink, just stared forward like the weight had finally crushed the last of whatever was left inside him. And maybe it had. Afterward, Tyler looked at me. That's it. That's it. Feels quiet. Just as usually is. He nodded, then turned off the screen. No celebration. No clapping. Just resolution. The kind that doesn't make noise, but lets you breathe easier at night. Tyler's school hosted a student speaker event, senior class projects where each student shared a lesson they'd learned from their personal life. I didn't expect him to sign up, but when I arrived at night, there he was, standing at the podium, note cards in hand, microphone crackling. He looked out at the crowd, then at me. Took a breath. My name's Tyler Callahan. A lot of you know me. A lot of you don't. Pause. Strong. This past year, my life kind of blew up. My family changed. People I trusted turned out to be something else. He didn't flinch. I watched my dad get betrayed. I watched him fight without lifting his fists. I watched him rebuild everything we lost. A beat. He didn't just protect me. He taught me how to stand. He looked straight at me. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't need revenge to win. You just need to remember who you are. Applause broke out. He stepped down from the podium, calm, unshaken. We hugged in the parking lot after. Tight. You proud? He asked. I nodded, throat tight. More than you know. Because I'd watched him grow from the boy behind the door into the man beside me now. We never heard from Rachel again. No letters. No calls. No visits. She vanished from the city, from headlines, from our lives. Linda once mentioned she'd seen her working at a nonprofit in another state. Low profile. No media. No security clearance. I didn't ask for more. Didn't need to. Some ghosts are better left to fade. Tyler never asked either. He stopped bringing her up after the envelope. Sometimes silence isn't cold. Sometimes it's mercy. One night, I sat on the balcony alone. City lights flickering like stars trying to punch through fog. I thought about all the things I'd lost. Then I thought about what I still had. And in that moment, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Because when silence comes from peace, not pain, it's not emptiness. It's release. And Rachel? She had her silence. But so did we. Ours just meant something better. 3 months later, I found the house. It wasn't big. A single-level home on the edge of a quiet street. 2 bedrooms. Wide windows. A garden that hadn't been touched in years. The fence leaned a little to the left, but there was sunlight everywhere. It wasn't a fortress. It didn't need alarms or reinforced doors. It was a home, something I hadn't felt in years. Tyler walked through the front door first, pausing in the empty living room, running his fingers along the faded paint. You sure? He asked. Completely. We walked the rooms together, bare floors, dusty corners, but it felt right. Not because it was safe, because it didn't need to hide anything. The past year had taught me this. Homes aren't built from square footage. They're built from what stays after the lies are gone. We didn't say much as we signed the lease. Tyler filled out his school transfer. I set up the utilities and changed my address on every file that mattered. We picked up paint samples, laughed over how bad we were at choosing colors. We planted herbs out back, fixed the squeaky screen door, and let the place grow with us. The locks on the doors were thin, but I wasn't worried, because we weren't hiding anymore. That first night in the new house, I left my bedroom window open. Listened to the breeze. Tyler called out from the hallway, "It smells like real life in here." And it did. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning a counterattack. I wasn't watching shadows. I was breathing again. And the house didn't need to be secure. Because we were. Tyler knocked once, then walked into my room holding a plain shoebox. "Found this while unpacking," he said. "Didn't know you still had it." I took the box from him, sat down on the edge of the bed, dusted it off. Inside, my old FBI badge, scratched but intact. A photo of me and Jason from Training Academy, years before betrayal wore his face. A strip of ultrasound film from when we first found out we were having Tyler. A small note, yellowed and wrinkled. Rachel's handwriting. A memory from another lifetime. You'll be the best father. I know it. I stared at the paper for a long time. Tyler sat next to me but didn't speak. He didn't need to. I placed the photo of Jason aside. The badge too. Then held up the note. What do you want to do with it? He asked gently. I considered it. Burning it felt dramatic. Keeping it felt like pretending. I folded it once, then again, and tucked it back into the box. It's part of the story, I said. Just not the whole story. Tyler nodded. That's fair. We sat there together, the box between us, not as a symbol of pain, but of survival. He leaned his head on my shoulder, just for a second. I'm glad you didn't give up, he said quietly. I almost did, I admitted. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Peaceful. Alive. I closed the box and slid it under the bed, not to forget, but to remember how far we'd come. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when I found it. A single page folded under my coffee mug. Tyler had left early for school. No note, no goodbye, just this one letter in his handwriting. I unfolded it carefully. Dad, you don't talk about what you lost. Not really. I know you try to protect me from it. You always have. But I saw everything. I saw how much it hurt you. I saw how hard you fought, not for revenge, but to keep your soul. I used to think strength meant being angry, but now I know it means surviving and still being kind after. You taught me that. You could have let bitterness swallow you. You could have made it all about getting even. But you didn't. You chose us. You chose me. So I want you to know you're not just my father. You're my hero. Not because you saved me, but because you let me help you save yourself. Tyler, I read it 3 times before I could even breathe. Then I folded it slowly, placed it into the same shoebox under my bed, right beside Rachel's old note. Not because they were equal, but because they were chapters in the same book. Tyler wasn't just healing. He was watching. And somehow, he'd become the man I never got the chance to be at his age. Not broken, not bitter, but whole. The house was quiet. Sunlight poured through the windows, touching the old wooden floor with a kind of softness only peace brings. I stood in the backyard, cup of coffee in hand, watching Tyler shoot hoops in the driveway with that same effortless focus I used to see in the mirror before life got complicated. Game to 20, he called out. I grinned. Only if you're ready to lose. He laughed, and it echoed through a yard that once held nothing but ghosts. I looked around. No more cameras. No more tracking boards. No more secrets. Just grass, sky, breath. I thought about everything we'd come through. Rachel, Jason, the lies, the war, but also the rebirth. The mornings with nothing to hide. The nights where sleep came easy. The small, golden moments that didn't scream, that just stayed. And I realized, we spend so much of our lives trying to hold on to things that betrayed us, we forget we can build new things in their place. Better things. So let me ask you something, wherever you are, whatever you've survived. If you had one chance to start over, no noise, no fear, just truth, would you take it? Or would you still be standing in the ruins? Let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? What did this story make you feel? And if this story meant something to you, if you felt the revenge, the redemption, the rise back to life, then show some love, like, share, and subscribe so more people can feel it too. Not for me, but for the next person who needs to know. They're not alone. They can survive betrayal, and they can write their own ending. Thanks for walking with me through this story. Now tell me, how would you rewrite yours?